I am not seeing Diane Sarah on Zoom. So if somebody wants to reach out to her, or maybe they know her, if she would like to try and get back on, that'd be great. Next up, Judith Burns. Judith there? Are you Judith? All right, great. Yeah, if not, you are now. All right.
Okay.
If you would please give your name, and if I'm just going to ask you to please be succinct about your experience as a poll worker. So please give your name and let's go.
I'm Dr. Judith Burns. I'm a resident of Maricopa County, and I've been a public educator for 40 years at both the university and secondary levels of education. I was an observer at the tabulation and election center on 2 occasions and a poll watcher in my community on 1 day. Initially, I chose to do this as a civic duty to my state and to my country. And I believed in the process. Excuse me. I'm nervous because this is so very, very important.
Ma'am, please don't be nervous. It's just us normal people that you're talking to.
We're on your side.
I know. I
You're
know.
a teacher, we're nervous.
I know. I won't check your grammar.
Thank you.
I observed at the election center on 2 occasions, both in the signature verification room and in the ballot processing room. The first day I was in the signature verification room, I was a little bit, having never done this before, I was a little bit startled at the circumstances. I walked in, was set at a table, told to stay in that spot, and I was facing a room full of computers that all I could see was the back of them. There were some computers behind me, but no screeners there that day. There were maybe 8 or 9 people present that day. I couldn't see anything, and I was very disturbed by this, but wasn't really sure what to do. I did ask Celia, who I believe is one of the vice presidents of operations, why they were like that, and I was told because they needed to be set up that way due to the wiring systems. So I was there again 4 days later, and the room was full of screeners. I was able to turn my chair around and look through a plexiglass at one of the computer screens, which was maybe 6 feet from me. I could see it better when I was able to stand up, which I did. I kept looking at the screen because it seemed very odd. And in the bottom right-hand corner was a yellow banner. And I got into a position where I could see the yellow banner, which said low confidence. Then I started paying much closer attention to the signatures, thinking this didn't even make sense to me because the signature on the ballot that was being compared to other signatures didn't even resemble in any way what they were comparing it to. They were completely illegible. They were just scribbles on the ballot. And there were 5 screeners screening low confidence ballots for an entire afternoon that I was in there. And I asked Celia what the low confidence said, and she said just not to worry about that, that this was a new program that they were testing. And I said, okay. So I continued watching, and shortly after I talked with her, I had a few other questions, and at that time she suggested that I just sit down at the table where we were in our little area that we were supposed to remain. Shortly after that, there was a server outage, and I believe on my affidavit I said there was a power outage, But in actuality, the lights were still on. It was just the servers in that room that went out for maybe 10 to 15 minutes. So I'm sitting there thinking, where did all those signatures go that were in the queue for them to check? That was one of my questions. Then, when the computers came back up, the gentleman that I could see quite well all of a sudden had a green banner, and it said high confidence. And I just sat there very quietly watching, because then they had some conversations. There were 5 screeners all in one small area. They had some conversation, and the question from one of them to this gentleman was, "Are you still doing what we were doing?" Meaning low confidence. And he said, "No, I'm doing high confidence now." And he was, out of those 5 screeners, he was then the only one that was doing high confidence signatures, because he was the one I could see. And at least that's what I surmised. I don't know if it was coincidental that there was an outage, and I don't really know what all that means, but what was evident to me was the signatures that were going through there were not what they were trying to compare to. And so that was my concern that particular day. Let's see. The other experience was in the, I did ask Celia what happened to those votes. Were they counted? And I may have already said this, I don't think I did, but she said, yes, they were counted. And I gave her a puzzled look, because it all seemed very odd to me, and I wasn't sure what to make of the fact that there were all these signatures that did not match, and then I was being told they were being counted. The other area that I was in the ballot processing room. We were in a room probably a little smaller than this. There had to have been 75 to 90 tables in there. There were 2 processors on each side of different parties, I was told. Again, I was probably as far away as that black curtain, and the room was this big. We couldn't see anything or really observe anything. There did seem to be a process for getting new ballots for them to take out of the envelopes and separate the ballot and the envelope. But what I noticed that raised some questions for me was they had their purses at their table. They had their cell phones there. During their break time, if they did not get up and leave their table, they were able to rummage in their purses and in their backpacks. People had backpacks there as well. And this bothered me. I wasn't really sure if this was appropriate. The other thing I found interesting in the whole process was when the press came in the second day that I was there. The 2 women that had been in a quality assurance role, is what I was told, that sat at tables, and if they had overvotes or undervotes on a ballot or an issue with a ballot, they would take to those women. All of a sudden, they were sitting at a table like this, one on each side, and they were processing the ballots very close to me. They weren't very far. They had set up a table very close to where I was as an observer, and the press was able to take pictures of us so that they could see that there were observers close to them, and they would get behind me, and they were directed that I was an observer. So they were trying to get pictures, including me in that, was the impression that I was given by the conversation I was hearing. The other experience I had was in my community at in the early voting. I got there very early, wanted to make sure I knew where I was supposed to be seated and what I was going to be able to see. And I was placed again against the wall, out of the way, so that I couldn't see anything. And when I got up to walk, keeping distance from people, and there was quite a bit of an area, it was in a gymnasium, so it was a large voting area. I wanted to see the process of when a person would put their driver's license in and then get their ballot printed out at the other end, go to their voting booth, and then turn in. I just wanted to walk the process to see what was going on. I was told to go sit down and to stay up against the wall, actually, quite a ways removed. Well, as it happened, where I was sitting was where people would come to turn in their ballots and put them in the slot. Well, many people did not want to take their masks off and lick their envelopes. And so they couldn't, they were trying water and a sponge and a rag. Well, the wetter the envelopes got, they would not stick. So they started putting masking tape on the envelope. And I guess it's the teacher in me, forgive me, but I did say to the supervisor, I'm not sure this is appropriate. I'm not sure these ballots will be counted, and I'm concerned. And I did call the number on the back of my badge that I was given, EDO, is that, I think that's it, the number that, and reported that this was going on. This went on all day long in this precinct. There was masking tape, there was tape. Somebody had gone to get a dauber to try to get the envelopes to stick. But when I would watch people put them in, the envelope would open, and so I don't know if those ballots fell out, if those ballots were ever counted. I'm not really sure what it meant. But what I ascertained from all of this was that there were just some odd things going on, and I was concerned. I was concerned both at the tabulation center by the fact that we weren't allowed to see signatures, that I was looking at low confidence signatures and was told that those votes would be counted, and then going to a precinct and seeing that envelopes were being taped with masking tape for an entire day. And I was very concerned about that. When I volunteered to serve as an observer, I did so with the belief in the process and the system. That belief has been shaken by this experience. It truly has. And I'm truly concerned for our future as a nation and as a state. And I truly hope that based on the facts and the information and the findings that you received today from the many, many people that are willing to come forward and state what they have observed, that you will make an honest decision so that the integrity of our state can be upheld. Thank you.
Dr. Burns, thank you very much for your courage and your service.
Thank you.
Mr. Giuliani, do you have any questions?
So how many days were you there, Ms. Burns?
I was 2 days at the Tabulations and Election Center and 1 day at a poll watching.
Which was first?
The Tabulations and Elections, 2 days there.
The 2 days at the tabulation center?
Yes.
And then after that at the election?
At the poll, the first day of early voting.
So at the tabulation center, most of the time it was hard for you to see anything.
I wasn't sure what my purpose was.
And you were there to make observations of the examination of the mail-in ballots, weren't you?
Correct.
To see if they were appropriate,
Right.
filled out, whether the signature looked right, address there, name there. Did you ever get to see any one of them?
Not one.
Not one.
Not one.
So how many people in this center?
In the ballot processing room, there were approximately 90 tables, and it was a gymnasium-sized room. And the first day I was there, there might have been maybe 50 to 60 people in the room, 50 to 60 tables with 2 people at each table. The next day I went was during the week, and it was also the day when the press was coming, so all the tables were quite full.
So how many Republican observers were there in addition to you?
We were allowed 1 Republican and 1 other party in the room. That's it.
For the entire room?
For the entire room. And I made the mistake after lunch of going into the room, not knowing that somebody else had
Well, I
been
mean, it's
assigned to that room, and I was told to leave.
And you were expected to cover 90 tables?
Yes.
And you were the only thing that stood between their cheating and our having some assurance that they weren't cheating.
Absolutely.
They could have been doing anything to those ballots they wanted to, correct?
Correct.
They could be accepting ballots that had no signatures.
Correct.
They could be selecting ballots that had 50 of the same signatures,
Right.
correct?
Right.
They could have been taking ballots they had written up before and put them in there.
Well, I found it interesting in the ballot processing room that, and I did forget to say this earlier, tubs of ballots came in, and they were all rubber banded, but they were already opened. And so that when each table got their tub of, I think it was
That's an interesting
250
fact.
ballots.
They were all open?
They were all opened. They had already been opened. And I did ask somebody, where do these ballots come from? Who opens them? And she said, they come from the mailroom. And I started to ask another question. And one question was about our limit that we were allowed to ask. When I started to ask another question, she walked away from me. So they were all open.
This was sort of kind of like the approach of your governor and secretary of state. See no evil, right? Feel no evil. Just ignore it. So the ballots came in a tub. Did the other ballots come in a tub? Did ballots usually come in a tub?
Well, they had been through this mail room, wherever
The
that
normal
was.
ballots that were coming in, what did they come in? What were they carried in?
They were like those tubs with the handles, the shallow tubs that were handled, and they were rubber band. And
But they were sealed, the normal ones. No,
they
I
were-
say that the normal ones that came in were sealed.
we have no way of knowing. Nobody ever observed
Oh.
them coming into the mail rooms, or when they were opened, or by whom they were opened, or if anybody accessed those.
Well,
We
when
have
you
no
saw
way of
when
knowing.
you saw the ballots being brought to the tables, could you see whether they were open or closed?
They were all opened. They were already
All?
all of them.
All
were
the
opened.
ballots were open that you saw.
The people at the tables would open them up, pull the ballot, check the number on the ballot and the envelope so that they coincided. They would separate them. They would have their pile of ballots and the envelopes, and at that point they were separated.
So they didn't really have to open the envelope. Theoretically, they had to just check it,
The number.
take out the secure. I mean, let's describe it to people. It's an outer envelope, and that has the name, address, the district in which they're voting, and a signature.
Right,
That's how you identify it.
right.
The inner envelope is called a secure envelope.
There was one envelope. It was the green envelope. There are not two envelopes. There's just the one.
Wait. There was just one envelope
One envelope.
and a ballot inside?
Yes.
A naked ballot inside. Not in a secure envelope.
No, there were not two envelopes. Maybe correct? The green envelope is the only envelope that we have.
Well, no, there's
and we
supposed to
signed.
be a
There were
secure
not two.
envelope inside because
No.
your ballot is supposed to be anonymous.
There were not two envelopes. There was one envelope. It
Well,
was
that
a
may
green.
explain why they were open.
Right. They went through some sort of a system where they opened them. But we signed the back of our envelopes, and on the front of that envelope is the mailing address to the county.
Did you do a mail-in vote?
Did I personally? I hand carried mine and put it
But
in.
was it a mail-in vote?
Yes.
Well, was there an envelope you had to put the ballot in?
Yes, a green envelope, one envelope.
One envelope and the naked ballot.
Correct.
No other
No
envelope.
duplicate. And in other states that I have lived in,
Yes.
there
Yeah,
were
well, that's
two
why I'm confused.
envelopes.
Okay. So when it came in, it was open already,
Yes,
and all they did was separate it.
right?
Did they look at the back of the envelope?
No, because the envelopes I believe, are scanned in, and the signature verification room is where that number that is on the envelope coincides with the signature, and those are scanned in. So my understanding is that in the signature verification room, they do not know anything that's on the ballot. They only have the signature, and they are checking it against other signatures, driver's license, previous voting.
Did you see that done?
That's what I was trying to see in the signature
ever get to
verification.
see it?
Just that one gentleman who was doing low confidence and then switched to high confidence.
And you were the only Republican doing that too.
I was the only one in that
So if you
room.
weren't doing it, nobody else was.
Correct.
So that was all being done secretly. Well, secretly meaning without any Republican observers.
Right. Because the rest of the room was full. There were maybe 14 computers there, and it was full. And they were all, I couldn't see any of
So
them.
how many of these ballots would you estimate went into the vote without a Republican getting a chance to even glimpse at the envelope?
As much as I would like to answer that, I can't even
just
guesstimate. It was an entire afternoon.
How long were you there?
I was there 2 afternoons.
For how long each afternoon?
4 hours.
And how many ballots could they do in an hour?
Well, this was interesting. Some of them would click, 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 click without really looking at them. They would just sort of glance at it and go on to the next one and go on to the next one. There was one gentleman that seemed a little more intent on actually looking at the signatures that he was comparing to, and he would take maybe 10 or 15 seconds per signature. But some of them just kept clicking and clicking and clicking.
And how many of these tables were doing it?
Well, the first day I was there, I believe there were 8.
8?
8 computers, 8
Okay.
different people. There might have even been 8 to 9 people. The second day, I believe the room holds almost 20 people, and it was pretty full.
Pretty much 20 people?
Yeah.
So were they doing one a minute?
Oh, no, seconds. Oh, one
Every 2 or 3 seconds?
Well, one gentleman was clicking and clicking and clicking. I'm not sure what he was looking at, but he wasn't looking too...
What do you think would be a good estimate? One per?
An estimate probably would be one every, maybe 8 to 10 seconds.
Okay, let's say 10 seconds. One per
Okay,
10
so
seconds.
6 per...
And how many hours were you there?
I was there 4 hours. So
4 hours.
He's doing the math.
4 hours the first day when you had the 8 to 9.
Right.
And then 4 hours the second day when you had the 20 people.
Correct.
And that was the day the press was there.
Right.
Gee, how did I know that?
That was in the ballot processing room, though. They
were
were
they all
not
dressed?
in the...
Were they all dressed up better?
Pardon?
Were they all dressed up better when the press was there and had more makeup on?
A couple of them, yes.
Just wondering.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of ballots that you didn't get to examine.
Right.
I mean, that's a lot of fraudulent ballots to stuff in a day, in 2 days.
But that was just
Do you
2 days.
have you realized the enormity of the cheating that was going on in front of you? Do you have any sense of the... I mean, these are going to amount to thousands of votes that were
Right.
put into the system without any opportunity for the opposition to observe them, which the law demands and fairness requires.
I went home that night, and I could not stop thinking about what I
bet
had
you
seen.
couldn't.
I was so disturbed by it. I contacted Gina Swoboda, who was my contact person and arranged for me to observe. And I texted her. She asked me to write an email. And then I got very specific in my email. I was so disturbed by what I had seen. I went into this in good faith that people did the right thing. And that's not what I saw. I've never had the opportunity to provide a civic service like this before, and I was truly astounded at what I saw. And the way people were polite, but the way I was treated. Go sit over there. I was at that black curtain, and the closest table to me was further away than I am from that black curtain.
and you did this for no compensation, and tell us the reason again you did it.
I did it because I'm a retired university professor, and I wanted to be involved in this process. I believe in our country. I believe in this
Well, thank you.
process. And I'm so disappointed in what I saw.
You're shocked.
I was shocked, absolutely shocked. And at first I thought, maybe it's me. I've not done this before. I don't really know specifically what I should be looking for, but it didn't feel right. I didn't know what it really meant, but it didn't feel right. And the way things appeared, especially in the signature verification room, really disturbed me.
I'm very sorry for what happened to you.
Well,
Shouldn't happen in America.
That's why
that
I'm
should
here.
happen in China or Venezuela.
Well, that's why I'm here today.
Well, maybe you'll make it back into America. Help us become America again.
I would like to. Thank you. Thank you.
Just not so fast. Members, any questions?
Sorry.
Representative Bartow.
Thank you, Dr. Burns. This is really troubling. I mean, when you think about signature verification, that's so basic. I just have a question about how this works out. From your observation, does each click mean that it was accepted? You're talking about the clicks.
I don't know.
So there could be a click that it's not accepted?
And this was something that I can't answer. I don't really know that.
Well, if it wasn't accepted, do you know what happens to those ballots that were not accepted? Did they go somewhere else that you observed where they would be adjudicated properly?
Well, later on, I found out that some of them would go to somebody else and they would follow up on them. But my thinking was there were so many that weren't even close to the signature. How could they possibly follow up on those? So I don't really know where they went, and the clicking was, I didn't know. I tried to look. I tried to see what they were doing, but
You
when I
couldn't tell
asked
whether
questions, I was shut down.
You couldn't tell whether they were clicking accepted or not accepted?
No, there was nothing on the screen to indicate that. It was strictly on the keyboard.
Why have poll observers? I don't understand.
I know. That was my question after the first day, and then after the second day, I was really disturbed.
Thank you.
Senator Borelli.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Burns, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
My question goes back to the ballots coming out of the mailroom. They were already opened up.
Yes.
So would you suspect that possibility that they were opened up in the mailroom and a ballot was switched out and put in?
I would have no idea on that.
Could you speculate on that?
It would be possible.
Extremely possible.
Yes, it would be possible.
Let me ask you another question. In your teaching profession in all those years, if you caught a student cheating, what would your response be?
Oh. I wouldn't be very happy about it, and they would be in great trouble. And after a phone call home, they probably would fail.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I'm sure we all feel the same way. Thank you.
Dr. Burns, I want to, forgive me, I want to kind of run back at the envelope thing, because apparently Maricopa County runs differently than Pima County, which is where I'm from.
Okay.
So when a Pebble ballot is returned, a permanent early voter list ballot, that's what PEVL stands for. When you return that, it's an envelope inside of an envelope with a ballot on the inside. And what I hear you saying, I just need to be crystal clear on this.
Right.
The tubs that you saw with envelopes were singular envelopes with a ballot in them, all open.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. I'm sorry, Senator Allen?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Burns. I'm really curious about the low confidence and the high confidence. It's got me really curious. And you're saying that the screen with the low confidence, you couldn't see that the signature matched at all to any of, okay, so they're looking at one signature and trying to match it to other signatures that are on the page?
Yes.
Am I getting that right?
Yes.
And you could see that from where you were sitting that the signature did not match any of those.
Most of them did not match any of the ones they were trying to match it to. It wasn't, in many cases, not all, it was just a scribble. It was just a flick of the hand.
So, ma'am, maybe the low confidence might mean I'm not sure that this matches, but I'm going to pass it off anyway, or something. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm thinking maybe that it means.
Well, that was the impression that I had.
Yeah.
And I think many of them were passed on. And that was my concern and what truly bothered me.
Thank you.
Dr. Burns, just really quick, I know that you probably would like to get out of this chair.
No, that's fine.
When you were watching that, and this is just a real simple response I'm looking for, did you notice any stark differences? For example, you said a scribble. Well, what we didn't hear is the signature they were comparing it to. Was it so clear and convincing to you that it's like, this is a signature, this is a chicken scratch?
Right. It was that clear to me on many of them.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Just a moment.
Two quick ones.
Two quick ones.
What did you teach?
I was a director of choral activities in music.
I was hoping you taught ethics. Maybe you should now.
And, and as you now know, I didn't teach math.
Well, I don't do math very well either, but I just want to tell you I computed what you said, 4 hours, 8 or 9 tables the first day, 1 per 10 seconds. That'd be about 12,000 ballots that went in that were unobserved. The second day we had 20 people. That'd be 150,000. That's a lot of votes.
It was.
That's way more than the votes that decided this election. Way more. So if this is true, and we have no reason to believe it isn't true, I mean, all these people who are so upset saying that they cheated have to confront the fact that there are numerous American citizens who were sworn under oath that they did cheat. You gave us an affidavit under oath, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
You understand what that means, right?
Yes, I do.
I'm sure you do. Thank you. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you. Now?
Ma'am?
Oh, one more question.
Okay, looks like we're not going to get out of the question zone
That's
quite
okay.
yet.
That's okay.
Representative Roberts, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. Dr. Burns, you said earlier that when you were looking at it and they were saying that it was in yellow and there was low confidence, that you asked about it and they told you that it was a new program that they were testing?
Yes.
And they were testing this new program on live ballots?
This is what I was told.
Did they give you any further explanation on
Nope.
that? Okay.
Nope.
And one other thing, you also mentioned that you had concerns about where you were sitting after you had got up and walked around and you were told not so nicely to sit. That you had concerns about a masking tape issue that kind of went on for the better part of the day, and you asked about that. Did you ever get an answer on that? If there was an issue with that?
I was told not to worry about it.
Oh.
By the supervisor.
Not to worry about it.
And that's when I called. I did that very early in the morning. Voting had just started, and this obviously was going to be an issue right from the get-go of voting that day. And it was the first day of early voting, so they had not come across this. People did not want to take off their masks and seal their envelopes. So within the first 15 to 20 people that came through, I would say at least half of those, if not more, had masking tape put on them because they couldn't seal the envelope. Some tried water on the sticky part, and by the time they put water on it, there wasn't enough on there to seal it. But they just went ahead and put it in the...
Right. When you asked about this and you were told not to worry about it, who were you speaking with?
The supervisor at the precinct where I was observing.
And that supervisor is a county employee? Is that correct? It's not somebody that
so.
because you're there on a because you're a volunteer
basis, right?
and you're going through a partisan process to be a volunteer, correct? Mm-hmm. And so when you're reporting your concerns, you're talking to somebody that actually works for Maricopa County. They're an employee. It's not.
She was a precinct captain, and somebody else might be able to address that more than I can. She was the supervisor that everybody came to if there were questions regarding anything or the machines when people would put in their driver's license. And there were actually a precinct captain and a precinct supervisor there. And those were the people that were in charge as far as I could tell.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Cook?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fellow members on the panel, I just want to point out that not only this witness, but most witnesses, this is not a Republican or Democrat issue. Everything that we've talked about is about elections, and every vote counts, every legal vote counting, as we're getting beat up out there on the fake news media cycle here. So all of my questions have been answered except one. First of all, the low confidence signatures that you witnessed, which were just scribbled, no matter what party, who they were voting for, ran through the machine, clicked on, moved on the system. They were not taken care of. The next thing is one of my colleagues brought up is one of the things I had is that the all ballots were open when you received them. All the ballots were open when they came in there, highly irregular. So I can't imagine anyone saying out there tonight in the news media that we are in here and there is no proof about voter integrity in elections in Maricopa County. It just baffles me. When these people have signed sworn affidavits that are saying under the penalty of perjury, this is what they've witnessed. Nothing to see here, move on. It's just nuts down here in the city. Okay, but here's the question I think that all the members should notice right here. I heard you say in your testimony, now correct me if I'm wrong, you emailed in detail to the correct people these highly irregular things that you witnessed during you volunteering for this position, but maybe I missed it, I didn't hear. Did you even get a response?
Yes, I did. And that's, well, let me think. I initially texted, I got a response requesting an email, and then it was at that point, after the election, that I was contacted to complete an affidavit.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Burns, thank
Yes,
you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, sir.